All right, it is 10 o'clock, so we're gonna make sure that we respect your time. You're on time, so we will make sure that we start on time too. So just a real quick introduction. I'm Melissa Sadorf. I'm the superintendent of the Stanfield Elementary School District in Pinal County, and I am also your ARSA Governing Board President. And my co-host today is Sean. Sean, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sean Rickard, and I am the superintendent of the Pima Unified School District out in Eastern Arizona in Graham County. And I am the president-elect of the Rural Schools Association. And again, glad to be able to join you guys today.
We had a very informative discussion the last time we had a roundtable, and it really set some agendas for moving forward with what are the topics of interest to you. And the thing that really rose to the priority level for us in terms of getting somebody on board quickly to answer some of your questions was those issues around facilities. And so, Sean, I'm going to let you introduce our guest for today, and then we can open it up from there.
Sure thing. So, so many of you have probably met Mr. Smith in your interactions with the School Facilities Oversight Board, the Division of School Facilities, or some of you may remember it as just the School Facilities Board. They're kind of an organization in search of a name at this point, but as you probably remember, a couple of years back, the School Facilities Board, which was an independent entity, was moved over into the Arizona Department of Administration, and it was placed under the oversight of the director of ADOA, Andy Tobin, and Andy, has worked really hard to identify people that can lead the Division of School Finance within ADOA in a way that that both meets school needs and is fiscally responsible and tries to overcome some of the shortcomings that the previous organization had. And the biggest one that came out of that was under an audit that was done, I want to say back in 19, may have been right there at the beginning of 20 before the pandemic. But which basically found that there was a lot of state money that was getting tied up in projects that weren't getting completed, or in contingencies that weren't being needed and used, and that whole process was really bogging down, and it was tying up a lot of the money that was supposed to be getting to schools to solve our facilities needs in a way that wasn't terribly effective. And so Andy Tobin came in and he brought in his team, and at that time Nick Loper was one that was very heavily involved in that project, and Nick kind of helped to transition over to eCivis, which was a grants program that was supposed to move things through a lot quicker, and made some other structural changes within the organization, and then he kind of handed that off to Jack. And I would say it's been, how long has it been? A year?
It's been over a year.
Yeah. And so, during that time, Jack has kind of picked up those changes, picked up that progress, and tried to keep moving the football forward in terms of making sure that we are maximizing, the path for the money that the legislature has appropriated for school facilities to get down to the ground level where it's actually fixing the doors and the roofs and the other essential components of our schools. So that's kind of Jack's role, and he inherited a lot of things that are definitely causing people frustration, but he's always looking for ways to make things better, and so I appreciate his coming to join us today, and I appreciate all of you joining us as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack to kind of open it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. I inherited a great team, and I think the largest piece of anything is communication, making sure that you, as the superintendents of the schools, you have your facilities, you have a lot of different issues throughout the day. One shouldn't be whether or not you're going to get funded for a fire alarm system that went out last week. the work that we do at now the Division of School Facilities. So it was broken up into two pieces back in September of last year. And the legislature basically said the Division of School Facilities is the workhorse of the division or of the entire organization. What we will do is anything from adjacent ways, ensuring land is suitable for build, BRG, your building renewal grant program, which is almost $300 million this year. We've actually, believe it or not, gone through just about half, a little more than half of that building renewal grant funding we've already awarded so far. So we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm sure there's a lot of questions around that. But we've brought forward from the division the rules, making sure that MAG was compliant. So basically, you've got a Division of School Facilities, which is the workhorse, and then you have the School Facilities Oversight Board. When you're talking about new construction, they have oversight over all the new construction throughout the state. So they're the ones that will approve the funding for the land, approve the funding for the new construction, and so on and so forth. And then they will direct the division to issue out those dollars and move it forward. My background is I'm the former state director for USDA Rural Development. Andy Tobin, the director of ADOA, former Speaker of the House, he brought me in specifically because I'm a rural guy. I know the issues of rural schools. I know the issue of rural communities. I was a county supervisor for 7 years with Yavapai County. I did a lot of legislative stuff down here at the Capitol. I've worked very, very hard to ensure that rural communities were kept up to speed with urban communities and had the same like for like when it comes to legislation and rules and whatnot. But for the most part, one of the things, as I started out saying, was communication is key. And without that communication, without being able to just have a conversation with superintendents and facilities folks, we're not really going to accomplish that much. So I want you all to know that, and it's not a song and dance. I know I'm a former and recovering politician. It's not a song and dance. We're here to facilitate your facility needs and make sure that you have safe facilities for your kids. So my cell phone number, you'll get it from either Sean or, you know, from pretty much anybody I reach out to, because I want to hear from you. If you're having an issue with your liaison through your building renewal grant program, I want to hear from you. And it's not because we're trying to get somebody in trouble or, you know, I'm trying to point a finger or anything else. It's all about that communication. Why are we lacking in something and how do we better fix it? So we are 100%, our workforce is 100% virtual workers. We are spread across the entire state. So our liaisons they work in specific regions. And when I came on board, I set up regions for a specific purpose. I know that the schools, you have a lot of change. You know, a business manager will go from one district to another, superintendents change. You know, we want the consistency with the district and the liaison to be pretty much across the board every single time. So that liaison understands what issues you've had in the past with whether it's HVAC, whether it be, you know, weatherization or those types of things. They have that expertise to know, you know what, 5 years ago we replaced this roof. Why is it failing now? And it should still be under warranty. Let's start addressing it towards those things. So building renewal grant, if your team is telling you that your building renewal grant, and I'm just going out there, so please ask questions, stop me if you have specific questions, just kind of giving an overview of the things that I really want to tackle. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Jack, let me just jump in on this though. You brought up the liaisons, and I know you know that's something that there has been some turnover over the last 2-3 years. And I remember probably 3-4 years ago there was a lot of what can I say this? There are a lot of people that attributed things not getting done to the fact that liaisons were overburdened.
Yes.
I don't know how many superintendents ever heard their liaison say, well, sorry, I didn't get to that. I'm sorry I dropped the ball. I've got too much on my plate, too much going on. Anyway, what is the situation as far as caseload, as far as, you know, I mean, have we added liaisons?
Yeah, that's a great question. We started out with 6 liaisons when I came on board. We currently have 5. but we are hiring 3. So, we're going to make sure that we have more liaisons than we've had in the past, because you're right. I even had Sean Maisel yesterday. Her and I were talking about, hey, can you talk to this one contractor? He hasn't got paid yet. We're trying to figure out what was the change order, where's the application? And she said, yeah, let me get through the 30 new applications that I've got just in this week so that I can at least get those started, and then I'll get right back to you. So you're right. You figure $300 million throughout the state when you're talking about our facilities is about $40.1 billion worth of assets out there, right? So that's a lot. Total of 125 million square feet that we're trying to maintain through the Building Renewal Grant Program. And that's over 1,200 buildings. So, I mean, there's a lot to do with only 5 people. And we've recognized that. I don't know if anybody's gone up to the state job site, but we are currently, we have bids out, not bids, we have requests out for applications for new liaisons. So I've already gotten 2 resumes. And on that same note, as you guys probably may or may not know, we're required every 5 years to assess your property to ensure that it meets minimum adequacy guidelines, which either means a lot of you, we've got 14 that are just about completed with their virtual assessments, their 5-year virtual assessments. So that's phenomenal this year. We'll have 14 completed, but we are hiring also an assessor for the division. That assessor will ensure that, my idea is we're going to set up a schedule. David Kennan used to do this before COVID. He would go out to the school property, set up his time to meet with your facilities folks, go out to the school property and actually do an assessment of the property to show where the deficiencies were, which is great because we just throw it into the Building Renewal Grant Program and you start getting funding and we identify those issues and we start fixing them. But also we meet that 5-year assessment, which is required by the legislature for us to do. So we'll have the virtual program, which is working pretty well. I mean, if your school has plenty of folks to be able to go out and walk the facility and make sure preventive maintenance is being done, double checking building numbers, making sure square footage is accurate, all those items that come into a normal assessment, similar to a tax assessment, then we're good. Otherwise, we'll have our assessor will be traveling the state and they will be able to go out there and do an assessment, probably 2 to 3 properties per day. So that's a plus as well. So we are building up our team to assist a little bit more because yes, that has been an issue in the past that we just had too much going on and not enough people to cover it.
I have a question. I have a question.
Go ahead, Shanna.
So
Hey,
Jack,
Jen.
hi, how are you?
Of course.
So it's funny that you say assessment because I'm writing notes as you talk because I feel like I've really worked hard to get my school a lot of help. But I feel like assessments where it started. I thought, well, first I started with a bond, right? And that put money in my bank so that I could hire architects and assessors. And the assessments was the key to getting my project going. So how thorough will these be assessments? Because, we thought we needed things fixed. I had no idea the depth of what my school needed. So I really contributed to my architect and my project manager who did very thorough assessments. I had no idea about this weatherization thing. So how deep will it be as well done as like what I've experienced?
Yeah, it's pretty in depth. It's to make sure that the facilities themselves meet the minimum adequacy guidelines. So we'll go in and we'll do CO2 checks. It's during school time, right? Because you've got kids coming in from recess, your CO2 levels are going up. How long does it take to get the CO2 levels back down to the standard? We'll have those types of tests going on. We'll be testing to make sure that we don't see any leaks, that preventive maintenance to fan motors, to different pieces of equipment. And all of this will be sent ahead of time to the facilities folks, probably a week or 2 prior to us even showing up. So it's a pretty in-depth assessment. And again, it's not to say, hey, you're not doing your building maintenance, or you're not doing this. I can't tell you how many times a liaison has told me, Jack, because I went out to the school, I was able to identify X, Y, and Z that their facilities folks said, I would have never even thought about that, or we didn't check that, or we thought we had. So these assessments, although mandated by law that we do them every 5 years for every property that we maintain through the building and renewal grant program, it's pretty in-depth, and we'll make sure that we're ensuring that preventive maintenance is done. We'll give you a guide to ensure how to do preventive maintenance. I think it's key to know where the problems lie. You know, our liaisons go out to umpteen many schools, and they can identify certain things on roofs, certain repairs, certain just the look of something, weatherization. I call it painting, but it's weatherization. You know, we walked into Chino Valley, and great school, but we looked at their painting, and Andy was there, I was there, and we're going, what is going on with this? This is all weatherization. This protects the outer layer of that school so it doesn't bleed into it and we start having mold or anything else issues. So those things are important, and that's what we want to identify on a regular basis. We want to, again, we're working with the schools. It's no more the SFB versus the school district, if that's the way it felt way back in the day. I'm about customer service. And I think one of the biggest things you're going to see, because knowledge is everything, right? You guys are educators. Knowledge is everything. One of the things we're doing right now is eCivis has to be, and I'm segueing into this because it's very, very important. I want to get the word out. We've identified as eCivis is a great program if you're just doing grant management. If you're doing maintenance of facilities and you're trying to get dollars out very, very quickly, which with the BRG, again, we're in the single digits for awards. You should not have any delays on BRGs. And if you do, you got to call me. But we're switching platforms. eCivis very soon, within the next 6 months, will no longer be a part of the Division of School Facilities. We are switching over to Salesforce, and we are specifically designing software with dashboards that you superintendents will have access to, whether it be, and we're making sure that cell phones, we're making sure that all the medias work with our devices so that you can be at an event and all of a sudden you get an alert that says you haven't turned in your financial report for this, you know, and you'll be able to see that in real time so that you can address it either at that time or later on in the week with your facilities folks to make sure you're up to speed. Because I tell you, a lot of superintendents say, you know what, I don't even know where we're at. What is it? It's going to give you real-time data. So if you've got 12 BRGs going, you're going to see 12 BRGs on a list, and it's going to show you the specific status of each one of those. It'll also call out red flags. So if you wanted to say, hey, I want information on this in 30 days, if this isn't done, your liaison will put a flag in there for 30 days, and you'll get an email getting a specific status report or saying, go up to your dashboard and check it out. Yeah, go ahead.
Will it have the budget and all of that? Everything will be in this. What's it
All your
called?
dollars,
Salesforce?
you got it. It's all going to be there from start to finish. Your financials will be there as well as your application. You know, when did it get started? You know, when was the change order? Right now, I'm working with the school district because 2 change orders weren't sent to us, and they're literally sitting on the desk of the district. I mean, you get busy. We understand that, but if we know there's a change order there, which will be phenomenal because your folks that are doing the work, your architect, your construction folks, they'll have dashboards as well. They'll be able to request it to see where the money's at, where's it coming from, what's the holdup, rather than calling and saying, where's my money? So it's going to be a phenomenal system. We're taking our time doing it right. The feedback that we've gotten, you guys know we have monthly training sessions now for the BRG program. If you have not been involved in that, or your folks haven't been involved in that, I suggest you do. This was something I developed specifically for the district. So every month, I believe there's one either this week or next week. I can get you all the dates, but we want to curtail it to what you need. So if you need information on how to fill out an application, how to do a change order, what should I be looking at as far as my AC units or my roofing when it comes to maintenance? You know, should I put AC units on the roof anymore? You know, should we do new construction? All of these things, you'll have the opportunity to send in an email and say, I want training on this. You're getting it from the experts. The liaisons are doing the training with the districts. And typically we could have up to 70 to 100 people show up on these training sessions, which we have. And this is every single month, 12 months a year. They're not going to stop, and we're just going to continue the training. We're also now recording them, and we're going to be putting them up on the website. So if you miss it, you're on vacation, you can go up and still view these documents at your leisure. So yeah, a ton of stuff going on, and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of throwing stuff out. But it is true. We had a lot of things that we needed to fix. Nick did a lot of great things to get us in the right direction. Andy is phenomenal. You know how he is and how he will react if he hears that something's going awry. So we want to make sure that we stay on course with what we need to do. So
Thanks,
good stuff.
Jack. And thanks, Shanna, for asking.
Yeah.
Robbie, go ahead.
Hey, Jack, Robbie from Holbrook. Thanks for joining us this morning. I want to start by saying that I have seen the evolution of leadership, that things are changing at the school facility oversight board. I've seen more customer service. I've seen more attention. Revolving liaisons are always an issue. I think consistency, we've been through that phase where one comes and one goes, and then the projects get dropped and there's communication issues, and we appreciate the consistency with our liaisons. So great job. Thank you for your good work. And I know it's a challenge. Obviously, there's a lot to do, but we do appreciate your leadership. I see 4 things that we're experiencing in our district, and I think we experience in rural settings. Number one is there's a major aging buildings issue going on in rural America. We don't have the bonding capacity. We don't have sometimes the voter initiatives to keep our buildings to the level, the proficiency, the efficiencies that they have in other urban and suburban areas of Arizona. And our kids deserve to be in those facilities just like everyone else. And the advancement of facilities now changes the dynamics of how you teach and the way you teach and the structures of how you teach. So I think we really need to do, as a rural communities, you talked about the assessor. I've been the superintendent for 14 years and I've never had an assessor come out on a 5-year rotation and ever walk our buildings and say, this is what needs to happen in your buildings. That's for 14 years. I've never seen that. So that 5-year law is not being implemented, and I'm sure it will be under your guidance, but just to know the historical aspect of that was the first I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, that actually came up, just so you know, in our audit from the 2019 that Sean was talking about. That actually came up in our audit, and the fact that it hadn't been done in years.
Yeah.
So this is something we're throwing a little bit of money at, and we're going to get some professionals out there.
Well, I appreciate that, because I think that would help, especially rural communities, to have that. Because I've had to hire over the last 3 to 4 years, I've hired a project manager just because we're in dire needs of having the assessments and being able to manage projects. And you just, as you just mentioned, the e-civis process is, you almost have to have a little degree to go through that process. It's lengthy, it's time consuming, it's a process and so forth. So I think that's, we don't have a lot of resources to do these kind of major project renovations and be able to put the applications through. So I've had to hire a project manager. It's been great return on the investment because we've been able to get projects completed. But without that, if you don't have a project manager, your superintendent, your business manager is trying to do that. And it's almost impossible because there's so many other things going on. And then your buildings just continue to decay. A couple other things. Something that we haven't really addressed that I think is a major topic of discussion is school safety. In rural settings, the single points of entrance and your fences and your assessments of school safety, which is a capital issue. It's something that needs to be addressed in the capital. I hate to think that we have to wait until we have a major event before we're able to throw money into our buildings to make our schools safer. We do that as much as we possibly can, but I think that needs to be on the radar of our legislature. It needs to be on the radar of school facility board and local districts, because I think there's a lot of unsafe schools in Arizona based off of their capital structures. And then the last thing that I'll say, and I'll be quiet, is the minimum standards. The minimum standards that we have right now, I disagree, and I believe that I'm not alone in this. I disagree that we put 30 kids in a classroom because you have built space for this amount of kids. And especially with the health and wellness standards. And so I would like to see or have a discussion about how we analyze the minimum standards and what that maybe looks like in today's world versus when they were written back in the day. An example is we weren't able to get air conditioning in our elementary schools or in any school in Holbrook because we were too high of elevation.
Yep.
And I struggled for 5+ years. Say we had to go in the middle of the day and we had to take the room temperature. And if it was above 80 degrees, then that means that it had to be so many days, but that was the minimum standard for us to qualify for air conditioning. That was a standard. And I think we really need to take a deep dive into what those minimum standards are and if they truly apply to today's education world in facility management.
Well, I'll be honest, I can't agree with you more. One of the things that made me scratch my head when I went up to the northern region and started, touring the schools was, these boxes that throw moisture into a room. It made no sense to me because you're absolutely right. That rule made no sense. And we're done with that. AC units last longer, a lot less maintenance because you don't have water flowing through them. And plus you're not introducing moisture into the classroom, which is causing mold. It's causing, health issues and so on and so forth. So I've also recognized that fact. And that's something that I agree, needs to be changed specifically. We don't just say, let's put those evacs back on there. We want to put regular AC units regardless, because it protects the facilities, to be honest with you. It draws out the moisture from the room. It makes sure that the mold and mildew and whatnot does not constantly survive in that environment. So I totally agree with you. That is something that we need to address with the legislature. As you guys know, everything we do with the minimum guidelines is within the legislature, right? And we're about to finish the rules for the MAG, minimum adequacy guidelines, and we'll have those completely done probably by next month. But there are some things that I think next year we need to pull and change, and specifically talking about these types of issues. So more to follow on that. We got to get through the MAG. We've got to get those. It's been 10 years since those have been updated, and even the legislature asked me, Jack, what do you mean you're going from chalkboards to smart boards? And what do you mean, all the kids now have computers? I said, we're just updating it right now. The schools have computers now. The schools have, tablets. They don't just use traditional books anymore. They use smart boards. And again, respiratory issues with the chalk, or maybe even the smell in the room with the whiteboard. There's just some things that we need to keep standard. Now, on that note, understand too that I've hired a regulatory manager. So this manager handles policy and regulatory compliance. And that's Deborah Norris. You probably know her.
Oh.
She handles anything and everything that has to do with rules, policies, procedures, and so on. So you're going to see a lot of proactive change coming, and we will be communicating that change through our monthly meetings for the training meetings to make sure that is a segment. So if we change a policy or we've got something going out, we're not just going to put it on the website and hope that you guys show up there because you're bored one day surfing the internet. We got to make sure that we reach out, show you what the changes in policy are, and get feedback from you to ensure we're doing the right thing for the district. Okay, because you're right, rural and urban, two separate issues, two separate concerns. One has a ton of bonding, one has the ability to say, you know what, I don't need your money, I'm going to do this anyway. The other one, you superintendents are out there driving the buses when there's a shortage. So we get that. It'll take a little time to get up to speed, but we're getting there.
Yeah, as an example, I was just in a meeting last week, and one superintendent in a bigger district said they needed to upgrade their roofing projects, and they said, we're just going to go out for a bond for that. And instead, we go to the SFB for that. They go out for a bond for that. So that's a great example of what can be done and what can't be done based off of the community in which you live.
Right.
Hey, Jack, if you could, I don't know if you can pull up the chat, but Stephanie posted a comment in there, and maybe I'll just read it. She's glad to see the changes, and our rep came to visit the school. Time response is still frustrating and needs to be addressed. For example, a third grade classroom's AC unit went down. Representative helped file and approve on 9/13. So they got their, BRG submitted, asked for updates, and finally yesterday, she dropped your name to the liaison help. And she stated she was waiting for one other person to sign off. It was approved this morning.
Yep.
So I mean,
Yeah, no, you don't
there's
even have to go. Stephanie, you're absolutely right. So one big change that's coming up with the new platform is the liaisons are your manager. They're the ones that are approving. Right now, we kind of have a slower system to where the liaison will do all the legwork. Then it goes to Carrie for approval. Then it goes to Amber for approval, and then it goes forward. Andy has given us the leeway to say, I want to take out all of those stopgaps. I want to make sure that when an application is put in, yeah, it may take 9 days, 14 days, or whatever. Our standard right now, I think we're at 9 on average for an award, which doesn't mean you've been paid for the project. It just means it's been awarded, right? We want to make sure that that process flows through. So we're removing because Carrie Campbell, she will review every single BRG application that comes through. That's insane. Okay, one person doing that. How do you coach and lead as a manager if you're double checking what somebody else is doing? So those will flow through the normal regular AC units, refrigeration, your cooking station. Those normal day-to-day things will be a direct approval. Okay, so your liaison will have the ability to shoot it right through to funding. Carrie's role in the new platform, which again, within 6 months, this will be active, will be to spot check and ensure that information is correct flowing through the system for our audits, to ensure we're following legislative expectations and so on. And we're providing, number one, that customer service to you guys. So we're giving her the ability to coach and lead rather than to verify applications. So this is coming very quickly. I'm so happy it is. Feel free to always drop my name or just call me, because I will call you back or I will answer the phone. So yeah,
definitely. I don't know if you want to unmute and add anything on that.
Yeah.
I have something.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, go ahead, Steph.
I just wonder about that 30-day guideline, because that's seriously for little, like our library is shut down now. We're going on the 3rd week. We still have to, of course, order things and get in the AC because we're not approved yet. And it's just an example of that time lag, and then being told that 30 days is pretty much what's expected. Is that true? Is it 30 days?
30 days, I think, is the old. And we, as you know, when you're trying to bring in new stuff, the old stuff always rears its head and always shows up again. Oh, no, we're supposed to. No, 30 days is not the expectation. 15 days is now the expectation, or rather 14. But we want to be in the single digits. AC units are a priority, period. And it should be a no-brainer. It went out, depending on the age and we always seek to repair. We want to get a technician out there, see if it can be repaired. If not, we replace it. And those, again, have to be done very quickly, making sure the paperwork's correct, making sure that the school is still functioning adequately. So no, 30 days would not meet my expectations. Probably 6 to 7 days would meet my expectations, to be honest with you. So what district are you, Stephanie?
Congress Elementary School District.
Okay, Congress.
It is
Congress, Yavapai County.
Yay! Listening to Robbie, and just some thoughts on this also. Isn't there a way possibly, and just kind of brainstorm out solutions, that school districts that have, an on-site project manager or a certain level of expertise within their district be given certain, like they've been approved to go through maybe a different expedited process? And that's just another thought. So I get it, you're trying to control the money and, just kind of like where that goes. I do think also, you're saying you've already spent half the funds. because of the process and what you've allowed to happen, which thank goodness, it does mean you're gonna get that many more, thank goodness, things that get passed through, right? So we're gonna get our schools fixed as much as that money allows. So it's gonna have to go back to the legislature, obviously, to appropriate more funding, but thank you. Like, hooray,
Yeah.
right? That's a good thing. That's something that you can like say, look what we've accomplished and well
Right.
done. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know from the rural school standpoint, Congress, Kirkland, you know, our project, or I should say our programs don't always fit, right? You're putting a square peg in a round hole. It's, you know, you don't have ADM for raising your capacity or getting a new building, even though your building's 100+ years old, sitting in a floodplain, and it gets flooded out every single time it sprinkles out. It didn't used to be that way 100 years ago, but it is now. You know, we know topography changes. We know that there's design, everything changes, right? Everything has to be in flux, and we need to be up with that change. I'm just going to throw it out there. Replacement is something that we are really focused on right now. I'm not a lobbyist, but one of the things that we all just need to get together on is the replacement of buildings that are no longer of useful life. And I'll tell you, I've been telling people, if I was a superintendent, I would not want to give up my 3,000 square feet, period, to go down to 1,500 square feet, which that's what I'm allowed per the head count that I have. I'm utilizing the space that I have. Unfortunately, right now, if I do a replacement on a building, I have to right size that building. Make sense? As a superintendent, I wouldn't want to give up, you know, my extra space for a reading class that I have over here, or my EIS, or whatever it may be. I'm utilizing that space. It's not, it just sits there empty. I'm sure it doesn't. So that's something that we're really focused on this year. We originally thought, I know Nick had talked about, you know, taking it out of the BRG funding. We're 3 months into this budget cycle, and we're already halfway through our full allocation and a supplemental. So, I mean, that's scary when we have that much need out there. And again, talking about the $40 billion worth of assets, we have a responsibility to maintain them and not have you guys worry about your AC unit going out. And I will say also, in the past, it had to have failed before you reach out to us. Not anymore. If you hear a whining or a belt going loose or something's happening to a piece of equipment that's covered under BRG, we need to know ASAP.
So
because we want to get somebody out there immediately to check it and get an assessment to it, and we're going to pay for the assessment. We're going to pay for, you know, to make sure that that piece of equipment doesn't fail, because I've had school districts literally freezers go down and they're sitting there for weeks trying to get it fixed because it failed, and now they're at ground zero. So just keep us informed. We don't want to know every aspect of your lives, obviously. We just want to know how we can help facilitate making sure your buildings are ready to go when you walk in the room.
So one of the things that that changed under Mr. Loper, that you know, Director Tobin kind of oversaw, was changing the process of running projects. It used to be that, you know, you'd have a problem with the roof, and you would basically create one massive project that included everything from assessment through design to contract award, and you know, and it was all under one project. And part of what, you know, that 19 audit said, you know, it's taking too long to run these projects, and that's causing problems with budget movement. So they broke it up into a series of smaller grants, and I don't know that was ever really effectively communicated. I think, you know, when I talk to superintendents, one of the things that they seem to kind of scratch their heads about is, okay, how do I get there? I mean, it's not just a roof project, you know. I mean, you got to have that as I mean, you want to speak to that a little bit, Jack?
Well, yeah. So you've got 5 different I think it's 5 different assessments, okay, or 5 different solicitations.
Right.
So it doesn't mean, so each solicitation, let's start out with this. Each solicitation can take up to 12 months, okay? That's your legislative expectation. You've got 12 months to do a design or an assessment or construction. It doesn't end there though, okay? The division has the authority to extend that. So we're seeing supply chain issues, we're seeing a shortage of workforce, we're having issues across the board. We can defend that and give an extension on it. So each solicitation though has that 1 year expectation, okay? So if you've got 5 solicitations, you're going through a new remodel or something else, it could take up to 5 years to do something because of your, labor or, whatever it is. So don't worry about the time frame. And with the new platform, it's going to keep you informed of what the pace is and where you should be. Okay. So if you're doing an assessment on something and you're out 30 days already, you're going to get an alert that says you're past your 30 days. Where's this assessment at? What's going on? Just to keep us on track. So it doesn't take 5 years to get a remodel done. Does that make sense?
So basically, I mean, step one, if I've got a roof that's failing, step one is I have to have it assessed. And, and that means having somebody come out and walk the roof and determine that yes, this isn't just something that can be patched or, that there really is a justification for roof replacement, that the roof is out of its years of service, or damaged or whatever. And then once, and that's a project, and you're saying 12 months possibly to work through that project. And then from there, then I've got to design a solution to that project involving roofing projects, structural engineers, and a roofing, somebody that knows enough about roofing to be able to say, here's the best solution, membranes versus sheets versus what have you. So that's your second. So then you've got to design the solution. And then once that gets approved, then your next step is that you're gonna go out to bid and procure a contractor to implement that design that's been approved.
Right.
That project may take, so all of a sudden, getting a roof fixed is inherently a 3-year process. And it always was, but now it's 3 different projects. And I guess part of my concern with that system is there's nothing that automatically carries you forward. I mean, you do an assessment, and regardless of the outcomes, if the district doesn't initiate that next step of moving forward and hiring people to do the design, it just dies there. And when you have districts that have turnover in personnel, or people that are overworked and balls getting dropped, it
Or
creates,
untrained in the process or what needs to be done.
it can create another reason for projects to fail to get done. And every time a project fails to get done, then students are sitting in classrooms that are unhealthy, unsafe, don't meet MAG guidelines, that kind of stuff. But is there a way in this Salesforce transition to maybe smooth that?
Yeah, it'll all be connected. So depending on the actual, roofing project. So, you go out for an assessment. That starts the ball rolling. It will be all connected. So down at the bottom of your application, once you've completed your assessment, it'll say, okay, here's your next step. Your next step is to go into design, depending on the scope of work. So sometimes, like, I hate sending engineers in and architects in when we're just doing a shingle roof. If we're changing out like for like, there shouldn't be a real issue with that. And I will say right off the bat, if you have a leaking roof, I can send a roofer out there to fix your leak. Okay. Don't wait until your roof's leaking, or as soon as you see it, get with your liaison, get with me. We will have a roofer go out there at our expense, and we will repair that roof. We did that at one of our districts to where it was going to take years because the roof was so large, such a big project, that it was going to take years to complete. So I just sent a roofer out there and said, give me an assessment, give me a bill to fix the transition points, fix the leaking to stop the bleeding inside of that building, and then we'll continue on with our steps and making sure that we're doing our due diligence. So that's always something in your corner as well. Fix the leaks first. Let's not even, talk about that, because now if we don't fix the leaks and we're just doing the assessment and we're going through design, and every rainstorm, you're just killing that building even further. So it makes no sense. We need to preserve that building. So, and we're not going to throw tarps up there. We're going to actually fix the roof temporarily until we can get a new roof put on.
But that application is still, there still has to be an application process there, and it still has to go through
yes.
the design, and it's still, there has to be some, assurances you're still
Your
doing.
initial application starts the entire process. Depending on the scope of work that needs to be done, it will be laid out in Salesforce for you. So it won't allow you to stop. It doesn't matter. Your business manager could take a 3-week vacation to Maui, and during that 3-week vacation, it comes up that liaison, in my opinion, should be progressing that project forward. Now, there's obviously procurement and stuff that we don't do. That's all been given back to the districts. We've gotten rid of the procurement matrix. We don't want to deal with telling you who to use or what to use. Everybody's different. That's at the authority of the district. We want to make sure that lies with the district. But if there's anything on our end to progress it forward, and alerting you to the fact that, okay, now we're in the next solicitation and we got the year to start it, here we go. It will all be connected. It'll be daisy chained together to where it's all connected until we come to a final end and a solution. Then we're actually going to be asking to capture a little bit more data than we've done in the past, warranty information. We want to know, a lot of different pieces that your architect may have put together so that we have it on hand. And I'm trying to make it to where you guys as the district can upload it and also have access to it to pull it back down. So you don't have that stored on your level. You can store it at a state level and still have access to it through your dashboard. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, one of the challenges that we also come up against a lot in rural environments, and I think that this kind of feeds into Shanna's comment in the chat, is that we have older facilities. And a lot of times, I've got some buildings that were built back in the 50s and the 70s that, when we go to upgrade the HVAC systems on those buildings, 2 things happen. One, what used to be sufficient is no longer sufficient.
Right.
Because of the aging building. And so, where a 3-ton unit used to do the job, now you're looking at a 5-ton unit. And then the problem is structurally, you can just swap out a 3-ton unit for a 5-ton unit, because the supports and all of that kind of stuff, that the ductwork, everything may need to be redesigned. But finding people to come out to rural communities to do those assessments can be very, very time consuming. I will say, and I think I just noticed that somebody from PGPC had gotten on the call. I've had great luck with them as a referral source. That Caroline and Casey over there have been great at providing us with kind of directions. Okay, if you're looking for an HVAC specialist, this is who you want to call. If you're looking for a structural engineer, this is a good person to call. But that can really, again, our goal, it's usually that situation where, hey, the carpet's wet, the room's hot, the lights don't turn on, the fire alarms don't work. These are things that have to be addressed yesterday. And it's very hard for us to be proactive. And I think that your approach of looking at the MAG assessments and those kinds of things can help us to try to be more proactive. But we're dealing with buildings that are way past the national average as far as service years. I think that the national average for schools is what? 50 years, they basically say, after.
Okay.
And after 50 years, a school is really, better suited for turning it into a community center or something, but or you go in and completely refurbish it and basically build a new school on the same site using some of the bones. I mean, in Arizona, that's not even close to the case. I mean, gosh, I didn't see Jerry on this call, but I mean, his high school is more than 100 years old. And they celebrate it, and they, we love our old school, but when it comes to getting things fixed and the kinds of things that go and how long it's like every project you're doing, you need to have a historical restorationist on site to tell you, so I guess it's just something to be cognizant of. And I know you're aware of this, and we've talked about this a lot, especially, with my schools in Pima, getting older schools, assessed. My story is I had a structural engineer come in and do an assessment on our almost 80-year-old high school to determine where the deficiencies were in the mechanical systems and the structures. And then based on that assessment was able to say, okay, this is how much it would cost to get this facility up to snuff. And even at that point, it's not going to be great. So maybe it makes more sense to retire that facility and move elsewhere. You've been awfully patient. So
I just feel like I have so much going on at Mohawk through the school facilities board, but I think, Jack, this is a rural school platform, right? So, and I think that you're definitely an advocate for rural schools, and I really appreciate that. I think it's going to be very important for us as rural leaders. We need your help. We carry so many hats. I didn't know things were so deficient. We just see it every day and we live with it. But I know that schools in the city are not living with the bathrooms that my poor children are living with. And so I think that's really important as the process goes forward to protect us with project management and help. We're doing multiple things. You mentioned it earlier and Robbie mentioned it, but in order for me to do the project I'm doing right now, I have to have people help me with these civis. I have to have people help me write the grants and do the assessments and manage the construction company and the contractor. So I just think that if I could say anything on behalf of rural schools is how do we ensure that that is a part of helping us? And, if you're going to come do these assessments, I really hope that it'll go to the next level of, okay, so now let me help you make this happen. Because you can come assess, right? I can go assess my children on their academics, but if I don't take it to the next step, what good is it? It's a waste of everybody's time. I think you're going to run out of money, but I think the deficiencies are so grand. I just don't think we rural leaders even realize we came into this job to make a change. We had no idea about construction. I've learned, and I would love to advocate and help any other rural area, but that's just heavy on my heart. And I think another thing real quick is this whole air conditioner thing, the structural analysis piece, we need help. That gets me every single time. And it's months and months and months before, and then you just give up. And then you're relocating and then you're crying at night because you cannot figure it out.
Exactly.
Those are my things.
Well, and let me say that your school in particular, when I toured it, we were talking and that was not acceptable. The SFB failed completely. And there's no way around it. I'll tell you, the organization failed. I do not walk into any place and have an issue with water. Water is a part of life. If you don't have it and you don't have clean drinking water across the board to wash hands, to use for restrooms, you're not going to do it. If you have dirt floors, if you have restrooms that are I don't know what happened prior to me coming here. And I know there's a lot that needs to be fixed out there, and we're going to address it one day at a time. But until we do, we're going to continue to find solutions to join up our solicitations. Like one contractor under how many BRGs do you have going? Because rural communities, you're not going to have somebody come out and look at your roof, and then somebody else come out and look at your air conditioning, and somebody else come out and look at your sidewalks. You got to get it all in one nut, right? So, we failed you.
And to come back around, I think we're one of the first districts, if not the first district, that we're able to put all those BRGs, like Sean was talking, into one lumped project. So we really became a grand renovation project, and I hope that we can trailblaze and that will happen for other districts.
Absolutely.
Because I can't imagine keeping up with 10 contractors right now. I can barely keep up with what I have. So I hope that happens for other districts going forward.
Yeah, and you're lucky. Mary's a project manager. She's a certified project manager. She has a master's in construction. So I think one of our issues, and I think Sean brought it up right at the beginning, is we need more liaisons. And we are hiring more liaisons right now to spread the wealth out a little bit out so that we can have that expertise at the school, okay? Because that project management, each one of my liaisons will be certified project managers at one point in time. That is already in the works. I'm going to be a project manager certified. Everybody in our team is going to be project managers because that's what we do. We manage the projects, especially for rural schools that don't have the capacity to be able to have those PMs on site. You know, we need to be able to physically do that. So by sharing the wealth, spreading out the regions a little bit more, making sure that we don't overtask our liaisons. I mean, I got liaisons, same thing. They're doing work at night because they couldn't get it done during the day because the amount of meetings or the amount of phone calls. So we do recognize this, and we are all over it. Mike Gurr, who is now my boss, real great guy. He's a business and finance manager. He works on the 911 side. He is really he is really with us when it comes to getting where we need to be. So I wish he could have been here today, but he was tied up in other meetings. So I don't know why the bill fell last go around, but I would agree. Let's bring it forward again if that's what you guys want to do. You know, you got my support. So please let us know if there are things we follow up on for you, Jack. So anything I can follow up with you guys, or I know this was a lot. My cell phone number, real quick. You guys got pen and paper? My cell phone is 602-421-1882. And let me go back to also, there it is. Yeah, thank you. Let me go back to also the comment about how long it takes to hear back from a liaison. I want to hear how long it takes to hear back from your liaison. They have a standing order from me that if they get a phone call, they will return that phone call within 24 hours. If they get an email, they will return that email within 24 hours. Even if it's just to say, I got your email, I got your voicemail, give me some time, I'll follow up with you on Friday, or, you know, or whatnot. But if you don't hear back from your liaison relatively quickly, I need to know about it, please. Okay, that is one of my expectations. I think a few of you know that when you call me, I either answer the phone or I try to call back as soon as I can. Unless I'm driving, I'm the one that put the distracted driving order for the state of Arizona. My bad. So, but I don't have my cell phone on unless it's, you know, hands-free. So what else you got for me? I know we're running short on time.
Does anyone else have questions or comments, concerns that they want to make sure we address in the last couple of minutes that we have with Jack? All right. Well, please do, if there are any other items of concern. I know that Jack is very open to having further dialogue, so please take advantage of the opportunity to talk with him if there's something specific, or if there's something that comes up in the future, make sure that you reach back out to him. Jack, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and provide some information, and then answer some of the questions that I know have been on people's minds as we are navigating old facilities in our rural districts.
And please, I'll tell you, don't be shy. I don't bruise easy. You know, I can take it. And if it's just, you know, I tell everybody I talk to, you know, it's not personal. It's about trying to find that medium to where we can all work together. So if you got to get something off your chest, if you're used to the old SFB and you want to tell me how it was 20 years ago, I'll listen, because I need to know what the standard wasn't to make it to what it is today. Okay. It's just words until we put it into action, right? So I want you to hold my feet to the fire too. If I'm not doing something, I need you to call me out on it, because as far as I'm concerned, I work for you. I work for the governor. Yes, I work for Andy. But at the end of the day, my customer is every one of those schools out there, and I take that very seriously. So please reach out to me if you're having any issues. So I appreciate it.
It's been a great hour, and I appreciate all that you do for rural schools.
Thank you.
Arizona. Thank you. So looking forward, right now we're starting to talk about planning our October roundtable discussion. One of the topics that we're working with is A to F accountability. That's obviously a big topic, especially after yesterday's state board meeting when they kind of started the discussion about cut scores that they will wrap up on the 17th of October. So we will, be putting together some experts and some presentations to kind of help superintendents in rural schools understand how cut scores affect them and how letter grades are going to be determined this year. So look forward to getting some information from ARSA about that. Yeah, everybody's favorite subject, letter grade. Do they? Yeah, maybe we
Always.
should title it. Who cares? But no. Anyway, so thanks for coming. Thank you very much for the participation. This has been great. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys later.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.